I'm back. It's Father Norm, pastor at St. Vincent de Paul Parish in Akron, Ohio. I've been a priest for 46 years, and through those years, I've talked to a number of people and counseling them and also referring them if there was some need for some professional counseling in a particular situation. And I know that today, in all that's going on with this pandemic, with the whole economic issue, with the racial issue, just so much is hitting people today. And I know I've talked to several people who have acknowledged feeling sad, feeling somewhat depressed, feeling confused, just kind of listless, all those kind of understandable feelings. And listening to them and certainly referring them. There's many resources in the Akron area for people to go to. All you have to do, probably the easiest thing, is to Google in mental health counseling Akron, Ohio. One of those areas can be Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities also provides a spiritual foundation too, which is an important piece. It doesn't mean because you're spiritual, you're not going to deal with sadness or hurt. We're all human. Even Jesus wept at the death of his son, of his friend Lazarus, and so recognizing that we may need help and integrating the spiritual as a piece of it. Another place that has a strong spiritual foundation and very good overall mental health counseling is Emerge Ministries. Again, you could Google them and see somebody there. But I want to talk in a more personal way because I think mental health and issues like sadness or depression, understandably, even if we're going through that in some slight way, it might be very difficult to acknowledge that. I know I've been struck the last couple of months, and maybe you too have noticed, for starters, Mike Phelps, who was the Olympian who so many gold medals. And he came out a while back and then recently acknowledging that he had some real depression issues and making the point for people to be aware of that a lot of young people in the Olympics, once they were done or after all that focus and concentration for years, that they would find themselves in depression, but not wanting to admit it. After all, they were considered a hero in the United States, especially if they won a lot of gold medals and did great. And Michael Phelps mentioned that, at least in the past, it's changing, that they often received a lot of good advice and coaching in order to be physically strong in whatever particular event they were involved in. But very rarely before the Olympics and especially after the Olympics was there a concern about mental health. Thankfully, Michael Phelps brought that out, and people now are paying more attention and acknowledging if they have that issue and not hiding it. Another one, too, who just came out recently is Michelle Obama. You know, she talked on a brief video about how this was a time difficult for her. And she mentioned she had some low grade depression and that she had to deal with for all that was happening, including the whole racial issue, especially as a Black woman and a sensitivity to that. But her too, it was great that she came out. She did it, I'm sure, because she thought she could help some other people. Because Michelle Obama always was seen, whatever you feel about politics and everything, in the White House and even beyond, usually very up, very positive, smiling, seeming like, hey, she shouldn't have a worry in the world. Well, the point is, she did then, and she even does now, and is willing to admit that and get help. Again, Michael Phelps and Michelle Obama remind all of us, and I hope if there's anybody out there that's saying, "Oh, I don't want anybody to know what I'm feeling," and there's understandable feelings today with everything going on. It's understandable, it's legitimate, not just this time, but anytime. If people are going through some feelings of loss or grief or hurt or fear and anxiety, first of all, to recognize that. We can be in denial, to recognize it, to name it, and then take steps. And I bring this out, I guess, inspired by Michael Phelps and by Michelle Obama, just to make a few comments in my own life that maybe some of you can relate to. Again, I didn't have any serious bout, but there were a couple of times, or especially a main time in my life, that I was grieving and maybe wasn't fully realizing it, and it was affecting me more than I know, even though for years, 46 years, I've talked to other people about their grief. I've uh, I've counseled people. I've encouraged people to get help. But when it came to me, I was in some degree of denial and also thinking, should I say anything to anybody? Because after all, I'm a priest and we're supposed to look like we have it all together. False. Okay, here's the situation. A lot of you know that my mom raised me. I've mentioned this before. She was a single parent. I was an only child. In fact, I probably showed this picture before, but this picture, if you can kind of see it, my mom and me, I'm 9 months old. She sent that as a Christmas gift out in California where I was born as that single parent way back in 1947 and showing, hey, this is my son and I'm proud of him. And she wasn't embarrassed about being a single parent. Even back then, she could acknowledge it. And you'll notice for both of us, I think there's a certain joy, a genuine joy. People know that I'm an extrovert, and I think it shows even there. I'm ready to get out into the world. So I bring that up for a reason. My most difficult issue in life for a period of time was the illness and loss of my mother. She was my only family member. For any number of reasons, I don't have any other family members. And back in 1985, right after Thanksgiving, she was ill, and uh, and I took her to her own doctor, and the doctor said get her to the hospital, and they found out that she had breast cancer, and it was pretty far along advanced. And I remember that startled me, and I was already having some grief. I didn't realize what's this going to mean? Fear of the unknown. Where's this all going to go? We have this today about so many issues. So the other added thing is when the doctor came in before the surgery, he saw me. I was there as a priest, as her son, and he actually got mad at me. He said, "I can't believe this. This woman, your mother, has advanced stages of this great disease, and why didn't get to her sooner, or why this didn't happen?" And of course, I felt awful. He lit into me. He was frustrated and angry, I guess, and I know that. But boy, I was hurt. I had some guilt, sad, but over time, I realized, hey, my mom hid it. She didn't want to recognize it and name it, and she was in denial. A lot of people can be that way until it finally affected her to the point of illness. And I'm grateful that she had that surgery and actually lived 12 more years. All those years in the rectory, which is where the priest house is at St. Martha, where I was pastor, and was able to see her and connect with her every day. The last year of her life there, cancer reoccurred, but still we were keeping her as home as long as we could. And I had a wonderful support group, that's important, at the rectory with me to support my mom and to support me. A lot of times people don't think about the caregiver, and as caregivers, we need support too. But I remember when my mom was now in the final stages, and the doctor was telling me this, I was at a parish council leadership meeting, and a woman talked about a suggestion that she had that was very good. And the group, including me, went along with it. This will be good for the parish. But when the meeting was over, she came up to me and said, "I don't think you liked my suggestion, did you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" "Yes, I did." And she said, "Well, Father Norm, you're usually enthusiastic and positive, and you didn't say anything." And at that time, I realized it, and I said, I got to tell you, not as in touch with it as I should be. I'm grieving even ahead of time. Counselors call it anticipatory grief. That grieving of my mom soon to die, and so I'm not as vital, I'm not as enthusiastic, and I thought I was hiding it better, which I shouldn't do and knew better. And she even said, "Why don't you tell the parishioners this? You're always reaching out and caring for them, let them know you're concerned." And so I thought about that and went back and forth because part of me, I wanted to respect my mom's privacy, but at this time she was in those last weeks, and so that particular weekend at all the masses, I spoke and I said, "Folks, you see me. I'm usually positive, and I am. I love life. I'm enthusiastic about a lot, but right now I'm hurting." I said, I'm grieving. Hey, everybody can identify with this. I was grieving, because I know my mom's at those last stages and she's meant the world to me. Yes, I believe she's going to be with God in heaven. Yes, I believe that the love is forever. At the same time, still being human and hurting because she's not going to be here any longer. And so acknowledging that. And I spoke about, even when I talked about that parish council meeting, how I wasn't as even in touch with it, but it was affecting me. And then I didn't want anybody to know. And I was feeling some embarrassment because I'm the priest and shouldn't have this issue, but I did. And I can tell you this, after I preached at all those masses, people came up and they just opened up their hearts to me. They thanked me for my being vulnerable, for my sharing, because many of them were going through things and they thought, well, hey, Father Norm, and he's positive and he's got faith, and if he's going through this, I think it's okay. And many of them were also caregivers. And so, as caregivers, many of them were exhausted, tired, but they wanted to keep the focus on the person very ill, as other people did. It's a reminder caregivers, in this case, I was that, they also need support and care. And anybody caring who feels down and out, or even who feels frustrated or feels even guilty, because they're not as kind and loving to their loved one as they know it ought to be, hey, that can be a factor. So, mentioning this, you might think about this in your own life. There's way more I could say about this. Again, legitimate, understandable with everything going on today. Get help if you need it. Talk to a friend. First, acknowledge it to yourself and realize you're fine, you're okay. It's healthy to go to people and say, I'm not feeling so healthy in this area now. As I mentioned, you can Google in Akron, Ohio, or Summit County mental health ministries, mental health counseling to seek something out. Maybe first talk to a friend or to your priest. But get help and recognize the signs in other people and let people know you've got a good heart and you're a good listener. Thanks for listening to this. I hope this can be helpful to you in some way, and or maybe somebody you love that needs to hear this video, or just have a friendly person to listen with their heart. God bless you all, and may we all help each other become more healthy, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally.